Football has always carried a weight far greater than the 90 minutes it fills on a pitch. Its influence stretches far beyond stadium walls, shaping identities, communities, and international attitudes. When we say football has become a tool of global diplomacy, we are not speaking in metaphors or poetic exaggerations. We are describing a real, measurable shift in how nations interact with one another. It is a shift that FIFA recognizes and increasingly leverages as a means of connecting worlds that politics alone struggles to bring together. Consider what happens every 4 years when the World Cup arrives. Countries that may share no trade agreements, no political alliances, and no cultural ties suddenly find themselves watching the same matches, speaking the same emotional language, celebrating the same moments. That shared emotional experience creates a rare diplomatic bridge. It becomes common ground, a neutral ground where dialogue can begin. This is particularly powerful in moments of geopolitical tension. Where diplomats may fail to find the right words, football often finds them effortlessly, in the rhythm of a chant, the embrace after a goal, or the universal silence before a penalty. FIFA's leadership has understood this reality with increasing clarity. Their initiative, Football Unites the World, is not simply branding. It is an attempt to assert football as a stabilizing force in global relations. By elevating football into the realm of peacebuilding, FIFA positions itself not merely as a sporting federation, but as a soft power institution capable of influencing international narratives. And when they create an award specifically designed to highlight peace efforts through football, they are attempting to formalize that influence. They are essentially declaring that football is no longer just entertainment, it is an active instrument of global connection. To understand why this matters, imagine regions where political dialogue is frozen, diplomatic channels closed, borders tense, and communication strained. Yet in those same regions, children play football in the streets, local clubs form, and national teams compete. That continuity creates a thread of connection, even when everything else breaks. For example, matches between historically tense nations often become small diplomatic events, quietly observed by foreign ministries and international organizations. They may not resolve conflicts, but they create opportunities for softening rhetoric, reopening conversations, and humanizing the other side. And it isn't just at the national level. Clubs themselves have become vehicles for cultural diplomacy. Players move across continents, bringing with them languages, traditions, and symbols of identity. Fans who might otherwise never think about life in West Africa, or Eastern Europe or South America, suddenly know the name, story, and style of someone who represents that region. That awareness matters. It subtly rewires perceptions and reduces fear of the unfamiliar. FIFA's use of football as diplomacy is also evident in its humanitarian programs, refugee camps with football academies, tournaments that bring together divided communities, and initiatives where former rivals share the same field. Each of these moments rewrites a narrative of separation into a narrative of shared humanity. That shift does not erase conflict, but it does create spaces where dialogue becomes possible, and sometimes that is enough to begin a new chapter. So when FIFA awards a peace prize to a global political figure, regardless of controversy, what they are signaling is their belief that football is a platform powerful enough to influence public opinion, soften hardened positions, and create opportunities for unity. It is not always a statement of endorsement. Sometimes it is a statement about the potential of sport itself. Football's diplomatic power lies in its accessibility, its global reach, and its emotional universality. It can transcend political walls because it was never built inside them. And that is why FIFA continues to position football not only as a game, but as a global language capable of bridging divides that politics alone cannot. FIFA's decision to select Donald J. Trump for a global peace-oriented award is not simply an act of recognition, it is a strategic communication move targeting an audience that extends beyond the traditional football fan base. To understand this strategy, we have to look closely at how FIFA operates in the modern media ecosystem, how global audiences are fragmented, and how political identity has become an increasingly important factor in global cultural consumption. FIFA is not naive. They understand that the world's population is no longer united by sports alone. It is divided by political identity, ideological tribes, and relentless media segmentation. In this landscape, selecting Trump becomes a calculated attempt to court a demographic they have historically struggled to mobilize: conservative and nationalist-leaning viewers who dominate media ecosystems in the United States, parts of Europe, South America, and Asia. For years, FIFA has attempted to globalize its brand, into every political and cultural sphere. But certain segments of society remain less engaged with FIFA-driven messaging, especially in countries where football is not the primary cultural artery. In the United States particularly, the conservative audience has not always been the most enthusiastic about international sports institutions, often viewing them as overly globalized, bureaucratic, or ideologically disconnected from their priorities. By awarding Trump, a figure who commands unwavering loyalty from millions of conservatives, FIFA taps directly into that audience. Suddenly, people who may have dismissed FIFA as irrelevant or disconnected now find a point of identification. The organization becomes part of their conversation. This is not an accident. It is a result of a broader shift in sports marketing, where institutions now recognize that expanding reach requires engaging not only with fans, but with political communities. Consider the fact that major sporting events increasingly serve as platforms for political messaging, corporate branding, and ideological symbolism. Awarding Trump fits neatly into that evolving pattern. It signals that FIFA is willing to engage with politically influential figures across ideological lines, not merely those aligned with globalist or liberal values. The visibility that Trump brings is enormous. Whether admired or criticized, he remains one of the most covered figures on the planet. FIFA understands that any association with him generates attention on a scale unmatched by almost any other public figure. And in the attention economy, visibility becomes invaluable. Conservative media outlets will cover the award, expanding FIFA's reach to millions of viewers who might otherwise ignore football-related announcements. This creates ripples across social media, cable news, digital platforms, and international networks. Even negative reactions boost engagement. In sports marketing terms, controversy is not a burden, it is currency. Another layer of FIFA's strategy involves cultural balance. Global organizations often face criticism for appearing ideologically lopsided or politically selective. Awarding a conservative figure allows FIFA to craft the appearance of ideological neutrality or inclusivity, signaling that their recognition is not bound by partisan alignment but by their own definition of global influence. This shields them from accusations that they cater exclusively to progressive or globalist narratives and helps broaden their legitimacy among political conservatives worldwide. Furthermore, awarding Trump may also be an attempt to harness his crowd-mobilizing power. Conservative audiences, especially in the US, are known for their strong loyalty to political symbols. Once a figure like Trump is associated with a brand or institution, his supporters often follow. FIFA may be seeking to convert a portion of that loyalty into increased American interest in global football, a strategic priority ahead of the 2026 World Cup. This is not about ideology. It is about tapping into a massive demographic capable of driving revenue, viewership, and commercial partnership. In essence, FIFA's move reflects a recognition that cultural influence today is inseparable from political influence. By deliberately stepping into the political arena, carefully, strategically, but unmistakably, they seek to capture an audience that feels culturally overlooked and politically energized. The decision may spark debate, but from FIFA's perspective, debate is precisely the point. It expands the conversation, widens the reach, and positions football at the center of public discourse. Whether one agrees with Trump receiving the award or not, the strategy behind selecting him is clear: to engage a global conservative base, amplify visibility, and transform controversy into connection. When an institution as influential as FIFA presents an award that frames a figure like Donald J. Trump in the context of peacebuilding, it does more than place a trophy in someone's hands. It rewrites narratives, shifts public perception, and reframes the individual on a global stage. Awards have an extraordinary ability to reshape how people are remembered and how their actions are interpreted. They operate at the intersection of symbolism and reputation. And in this case, FIFA's framing of Trump within the language of unity and global peace is not accidental. It is a deliberate act of narrative engineering. Trump is a uniquely polarizing figure, admired intensely by some and opposed fiercely by others. His presidency generated some of the most contentious political debates in recent American history, and his global image remains deeply divided. But when an organization outside the world of partisan politics, an organization that commands billions of viewers worldwide, assigns him a peace-related honor, it effectively softens the edges of that polarization. It reframes him not through the lens of domestic turmoil or partisan battles, but through a global lens of conflict resolution, cultural influence, and unity through sport. This reframing is powerful because international recognition operates differently than domestic approval. Inside a country, political identity shapes perception. Outside of it, symbolic legitimacy often carries greater weight than ideological interpretation. When FIFA, an institution with no direct political allegiance, links Trump to an award about peace, it becomes an implicit endorsement of a particular interpretation of his global impact. It suggests that, despite controversies, there are actions or influences within his tenure that the global community can contextualize as stabilizing or constructive. Whether one agrees with that interpretation is separate. What matters is that the narrative now exists, legitimized by a respected global organization. From Trump's perspective, this award becomes a crucial part of his long-term legacy-building project. Public figures compete not only for power, but for narrative dominance. Trump has always understood the importance of image, how moments are remembered, how actions are framed, how history is shaped. An award like this allows his supporters to point to an internationally sanctioned acknowledgement as evidence that his presidency contained moments of diplomatic significance. Even if domestically, the debates remain unresolved. It becomes a tool his base can invoke in discussions about his leadership, a counterweight to criticism, and a symbol that transcends partisan lines. But it's not just about how Trump's supporters interpret the recognition. It is also about how global audiences, who are less immersed in the complexities of U.S. politics, might reinterpret him. Many around the world do not follow the daily chaos of American political discourse. Their understanding of Trump often arises from headlines, speeches, and symbolic gestures. FIFA's award injects a new headline into this global narrative, one that positions him in a role not typically associated with his public persona, a contributor to peace. That shift, even if subtle, can influence how future international discussions reference or evaluate his tenure. For FIFA, this reframing serves multiple functions. It allows them to showcase themselves as an organization willing to acknowledge political figures from across the ideological spectrum. It signals that they can elevate a figure not solely based on political popularity, but based on their own interpretation of global impact. And importantly, it extends FIFA's authority beyond football into the realm of geopolitical storytelling. They become not just a sports organization, but a cultural institution capable of validating or reshaping historical narratives. The reframing also strategically distances the award from political judgments. By presenting Trump in the context of unity and peace, FIFA avoids engaging in the messy terrain of political ideology. They frame the recognition not as an endorsement of political policies, but as acknowledgement of influence and global attention. In doing so, they create a narrative environment where even controversial figures can be cast in more multidimensional roles. Ultimately, this award becomes part of a larger global conversation about who shapes peace, who influences culture, and who commands international visibility. Trump's acceptance of the award doesn't erase the debates around him, but it adds a new chapter, one that FIFA crafted intentionally. And in an age where narratives shape public memory more than facts alone, this reframing becomes one of the most strategic, transformative components of the entire decision. Soft power is one of the most misunderstood forms of global influence, yet it is often the most enduring. Unlike hard power, which relies on military might, economic pressure, or political coercion, soft power works quietly and symbolically. It influences hearts before it influences policies. It reshapes perception before it reshapes alliances. And when a former head of state receives an award framed around global unity and peace, especially from an institution as widely recognized as FIFA, the real impact lies not in the trophy itself, but in the soft power leverage that accompanies it. For Donald J. Trump, this award represents a significant expansion of his cultural footprint. His political identity has always been strong domestically, but internationally, perceptions have been far more fragmented. Soft power provides a bridge over that fragmentation. When FIFA, a body associated with global harmony, multiculturalism, and universal participation, attaches Trump's name to a peace-oriented initiative, they provide him a symbolic platform that transcends political divisions. It gives him entry into global conversations that are not purely political. Instead of being viewed strictly through the prism of U.S. governance, he is placed within a global cultural context. This is important because cultural legitimacy often outlasts political tenure. Political power is temporary, but cultural relevance continues long after someone leaves office. Through this award, Trump gains something political debates cannot give him: a claim to global cultural influence. Even if critics challenge the decision, the symbolism stands. Soft power does not require unanimous approval. It only requires visibility, repetition, and association. The mere fact that the award exists becomes part of the narrative. Soft power also functions through networks, media networks, diplomatic networks, entertainment networks, and social narratives that circulate globally. FIFA's recognition amplifies Trump through all these pathways. News channels around the world pick up the story, social media reacts, commentary explodes, and suddenly Trump is being discussed not as a domestic, political figure, but as someone impacting global peace discourse. That shift in arena, from national politics to global culture, is a core component of soft power. It changes who engages with his name and how they contextualize him. For FIFA, awarding Trump also strengthens their own soft power identity. Global sports institutions rely on credibility, cultural relevance, and their ability to transcend political boundaries. By attaching their peace initiative to a figure who commands international attention, supportive or otherwise, they reinforce their position as a cultural force capable of influencing global narratives. It sends the message that FIFA does not merely react to world events, but can shape the way world events are interpreted. Soft power, after all, is not just possessed by individuals. Institutions can wield it too. This dynamic also operates at the level of global audiences. Millions of people, especially those outside the United States, form opinions about international figures based not on detailed political analysis, but on symbolic gestures, recognitions, and cultural cues. An award from FIFA becomes such a cue. It introduces the idea that Trump's impact can be viewed through more than a single lens. For some, it may spark curiosity, for others, reconsideration, for others still, criticism. But in all cases, it expands the range of possible interpretations. That is the essence of soft power. Another important element is narrative longevity. Awards create anchors in public memory, long after political debates fade. Headlines like FIFA Peace Prize recipient remain searchable, quotable, and relevant. Soft power thrives in these long-lasting symbols. They become part of how future generations or foreign observers might frame Trump's role in global affairs. And for Trump himself, whose brand relies heavily on public image, this award becomes a tool he can reference in speeches, campaigns, interviews, and international engagements. It is not the award that gives him power. It is the story around the award. This soft power impact also intersects with geopolitics. Nations often evaluate foreign leaders not just by their policies, but by their perceived cultural contributions. If football is the world's language, then being associated with it, especially in a peace-building context, extends one's influence. Even symbolic connections can influence diplomatic tone, international cooperation, or the way other leaders approach interactions. Soft power, in this sense, softens diplomatic edges by reframing individuals in broader, more culturally inclusive contexts, ultimately awarding Trump. This recognition does not rewrite his political history, nor does it erase controversy. What it does is introduce a new dimension, a cultural and symbolic layer that broadens how he can be understood on the global stage and in the realm of international influence. Sometimes that new layer becomes more impactful than the political one. Soft power is not about the past. It is about shaping the context in which future conversations occur. This award, strategically or unintentionally, does exactly that. The upcoming 2026 World Cup is not just another sporting tournament. It is a monumental global event that will unfold across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. For FIFA, this tournament is more than a competition. It is a commercial, cultural, and strategic opportunity unlike any the organization has ever undertaken. The U.S. market in particular represents the largest untapped reservoir of potential fans, corporate sponsors, digital engagement, and long-term football infrastructure. And against that backdrop, awarding Donald J. Trump a peace-oriented global prize becomes part of a broader strategy that extends far beyond symbolism. It is about anchoring football deeper into American consciousness at a moment when every decision can influence the outcome of the 2026 World Cup's success. For decades, American sports culture has been dominated by the NFL, NBA, MLB, and college athletics. Football, soccer, has always been present, but never dominant. However, FIFA sees the United States as the future engine of global football growth. The demographics are shifting. Younger generations, immigrant communities, and diverse families increasingly support football as their primary sport. Meanwhile, the commercial potential of U.S. broadcasting, advertising, and merchandise far exceeds what many traditional football nations can offer. With the 2026 World Cup approaching, FIFA is determined to secure every corner of the American audience, including those who traditionally remain disconnected from or uninterested in international sports governance. This is where Trump's award becomes strategically relevant. Regardless of one's political position, it is undeniable that Donald J. Trump commands a massive and deeply loyal following within the United States, one that remains highly engaged with media, news cycles, cultural debates, and symbolic gestures. Many in that audience have never fully embraced global football, often viewing international organizations with suspicion or indifference. But when FIFA publicly recognizes a figure they identify with, it disrupts that emotional distance. It signals that FIFA is willing to engage with the figures and voices that conservative America respects or follows closely. Suddenly, the organization does not feel like an outside or foreign institution. It feels like an entity that acknowledges American political influence. This matters because FIFA is not simply trying to attract casual viewers. They're trying to build long-term loyalty in a country where sports loyalty determines economic success. If even a fraction of Trump's supporters become more interested in the World Cup or more familiar with football's global narrative, it represents tens of millions of potential eyeballs, ticket buyers, merchandise consumers, and social media participants. The American market rewards visibility, and Trump is one of the most visible figures in the country. In addition to domestic strategy, FIFA also understands the geopolitical importance of positioning the United States as a central, stable, and culturally invested host. Hosting a World Cup is not just about arenas and tourism. It is about creating an atmosphere of national excitement, unity, and participation. For a country as politically divided as the US, engaging both sides of the political spectrum becomes essential. Without that inclusivity, FIFA risks losing entire segments of potential viewership. By honoring Trump, they extend a symbolic olive branch to millions who might otherwise ignore the event or dismiss it as an elitist or globalist spectacle. There is also a messaging component that extends beyond American borders. International audiences watch how host nations position themselves leading up to a World Cup. FIFA's recognition of a former US president communicates that the United States is not just a logistical host, but a political and cultural partner in football's mission to unite diverse populations. This strengthens the perception of the US as a stable anchor for an event of enormous global scale. It reassures international investors, sponsors, and national football federations that the 2026 World Cup will be taken seriously by all sectors of American society, not just those who already love the sport. Moreover, Trump has historically been vocal about supporting major American events and showcasing the country on the world stage. Whether one agrees with his politics or not, his involvement creates media momentum that FIFA can leverage. His statements, his social media presence, and his loyal ecosystem of broadcasters can turn the World Cup into a major topic in conservative spaces that rarely discuss global football. For FIFA, this is a strategic jackpot. The merging of American political attention with a football narrative. In essence, the award is not only about Trump, it is about the 2026 World Cup. FIFA needs widespread engagement, political neutrality, and nationwide cultural participation to make the tournament the most watched in history. By strategically recognizing a figure who commands influence over a massive American demographic, FIFA is building bridges, broadening reach, and ensuring that the tournament enters every household, not just the ones already familiar with football. Their goal is not just a successful event, it is to transform the United States into a permanent pillar of global football culture. And every symbolic gesture, including this award, is part of that broader design. Moments like this do not exist in isolation, they are signals, carefully observed by institutions, governments, media networks, and the global public. When a major organization like FIFA makes a decision that blurs the line between sports and politics, it becomes a case study in how modern power works. The awarding of a peace-framed honor to Donald J. Trump creates a ripple effect that stretches across continents, shaping how future recognitions, diplomatic engagements, and international sporting initiatives are designed. It essentially sets a new precedent that global sports institutions are no longer shy about entering political conversations, and political figures are no longer separate from cultural platforms traditionally seen as neutral. This blending has long-term implications that extend far beyond the moment. The first major consequence is the transformation of how global audiences understand the role of sport. Football has always held cultural power, but awards like this introduce a new level of political significance. They signal that global sports federations are not passive observers of world events, they are participants shaping global discourse. This blurring of boundaries creates both opportunity and tension. On one hand, it allows institutions like FIFA to influence issues of peace, conflict, and diplomacy through symbolic gestures. On the other, it opens them up to criticism for appearing politically selective or strategically aligned. The move forces the global community to reconsider whether sporting organizations can remain neutral in a polarized world or whether they have already crossed that threshold. Another long-term consequence concerns the future of political recognition. When FIFA honors Trump with such an award, it establishes a template. Political figures can be acknowledged for their influence on cultural unity, even if their tenure was marked by controversy. This changes how political legacies may be crafted going forward. Global institutions have enormous symbolic power, and their recognitions can soften or complicate the narratives that follow political leaders into history. For Trump, the award adds a chapter to his global image that his supporters will reference and his critics will debate. For other political leaders around the world, it signals that cultural diplomacy, especially through sport, has become a meaningful avenue for shaping legacy and influence. This evolution also influences how future sporting events will interact with global politics. FIFA's decision sends a message to other institutions. The era of clean separation between sport and geopolitics is over. The World Cup, the Olympics, and other major events may increasingly become platforms where political symbolism plays a strategic role. Governments may view these events as tools for soft diplomacy, global image building, or ideological outreach, and sports organizations may feel empowered or pressured to engage with political figures in ways that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The Trump Award becomes a reference point, an example of how global institutions can leverage political visibility to advance their interests. Equally important is the impact on global messaging. Awards like this do not just influence elites, they influence ordinary people. They shape perceptions of what peace means, who represents it, and how it can be achieved. When a political figure receives recognition from a non-political body, it challenges audiences to think about global unity in broader, more complex ways. Some may interpret the award as a call for reconciliation, dialogue, or understanding. Others may see it as a provocative choice. Both reactions contribute to a global conversation that extends beyond politics into culture, identity, and shared meaning. And in a world where division often dominates headlines, even contentious symbols can spark new ways of thinking about connection. This moment also signals a shift in how global leadership is defined. Traditionally, peace awards were reserved for diplomats, activists, or humanitarian figures. But in the modern era, influence itself becomes a form of leadership, even when controversial. FIFA's award suggests that visibility, cultural impact, and the power to shape discourse are themselves valued qualities in the global arena. It redefines the criteria for peacebuilding, emphasizing narrative influence and public engagement alongside policy action. This shift may reshape who gets recognized in the future and what kinds of contributions global institutions consider worthy of acknowledgement. Finally, the long-term consequences also lie in how nations prepare for global events moving forward. The award hints that countries hosting major tournaments may see their political leaders become part of the international spotlight, voluntarily or not. It also suggests that international organizations may selectively amplify or soften political narratives to support event success, cultural cohesion, or audience expansion. This introduces a new layer of strategic coordination between politics and international sports that will likely intensify in the years ahead. In essence, FIFA's decision is more than a symbolic gesture. It is a statement about the direction of global culture. It reveals how intertwined sports, politics, diplomacy, and public perception have become. And it foreshadows a future in which these spheres will continue to overlap, shaping global conversations in ways that transcend the boundaries of the pitch.